There are moments in life when you feel a shift you can't explain, a pressure you can't name, a stirring in your spirit that tells you something is happening behind the scenes. You can't see it yet, but you can feel it. Like the atmosphere around you is changing, like the truth is pushing its way to the surface, like heaven is preparing to answer a prayer you whispered through tears. You start noticing things, people acting strange, conversations that don't match their eyes, energy that feels different. It's not paranoia, it's discernment. It's the quiet warning that God gives right before He reveals what was hidden. And if you've been feeling this shift, it's not your imagination, it's a sign. Because when God says enough, everything done in darkness begins to crack under the weight of His light. When God says no more, the same enemies who moved confidently against you will start trembling under the pressure of their own actions. And when God declares a 3-day turnaround over your life, truth doesn't walk toward you, it runs. This is that moment. This is that shift. This is the season where your enemies will confess, and everything sent to harm you will return to its sender. When God decides to expose what was hidden, He does it in a way no human plan can interrupt. There are moments in life when you sense something around you is off, when the conversations don't match the energy, when the smiles don't match the intentions. You feel the pull in your spirit that something is happening behind the scenes, but you can't see it yet. What you don't realize is that God has already seen every detail long before you sense the shift. He saw the meetings where your name was mishandled, the phone calls made to damage your character, the quiet jealousy sitting in someone's heart, the false accusations whispered to slow you down. Every hidden motive that tried to operate in darkness is actually living in the full brightness of God's vision. Nothing escapes Him. Even the things you didn't know were happening were already filed in heaven's record. And when God says it is time for truth to emerge, everything that was buried starts rising to the surface with a speed that shocks even you. There is a divine discomfort that God allows before exposure. It is the uneasiness you feel when people around you shift their tone, their loyalty, or their story. You start noticing inconsistencies. Answers become shorter. Behavior becomes strange. Your heart becomes more sensitive. This discomfort is not paranoia. It is spiritual intelligence. It is God preparing you for revelation, softening the soil so the truth can break through without destroying you in the process. When God is about to reveal something, He strengthens the inside of you first, because the truth, when it comes, arrives like a force that cannot be ignored. It comes with clarity. It comes with precision. It comes with timing that cannot be delayed or denied. What your enemies thought would remain secret has an expiration date, and that expiration date arrives the moment God says enough. They believed the darkness would protect them, that no one would ever connect the dots, that their actions would stay hidden behind charm, lies, or manipulation. But God watches in silence until the truth is ripe. He waits until the moment when the exposure benefits your destiny, not your emotions. And when that moment arrives, He tears the veil off everything they tried to conceal. People who plotted in secret suddenly lose their ability to hide. Their stories start contradicting themselves. Their actions reveal their intentions. Their words betray their motives. God exposes slowly at first, then suddenly, until the truth stands naked with no place left to run. And when exposure comes, it doesn't just reveal what they did, it reveals who they are. You start to see the heart behind the actions. God shows you the envy they tried to disguise as advice, the hatred they tried to cover with politeness, the sabotage they hid under the mask of concern. The people you trusted become the people you finally understand, and the people you doubted become the people God vindicates. Exposure separates the genuine from the hidden enemy. It clears the fog and makes loyalty unmistakable. It breaks illusions you should have never relied on. God never reveals to embarrass you. He reveals to protect you, to redirect you, to prepare you for a chapter where truth must go before you so victory can follow. The moments leading up to exposure often feel lonely. You feel isolated, misunderstood, even wounded. But that isolation is preparation. God pulls you away from the noise so you don't confuse your emotions with His revelation. He teaches you to rely on discernment, not on the behavior of people who mastered the art of pretending. And when you finally stop chasing clarity from human sources, God delivers clarity from Himself. He exposes the lie, the plot, the betrayal, the manipulation, not so you can fight back in the flesh, but so you can stand in the truth and let His justice speak for you. When exposure happens, it is undeniable. It is sudden, it is loud without needing sound. Even your enemies become witnesses to their own downfall. They try to backtrack, rewrite, reframe, or justify, but nothing works because God has already laid the truth bare. He does not expose to bring chaos into your life. He exposes to remove the chaos that was already there, disguised as peace. And when He removes what was hidden, He also removes the power those hidden things had over your future. Exposure is not punishment, it is liberation. It is the moment you finally understand that every hidden attack was seen, every silent tear was counted, and every private prayer was heard. The truth about the weapons formed against you is this: they were never created to destroy you. They were created to reveal who God is in your life. Every battle you faced, every attack that rose without warning, every sudden shift that tried to break your spirit, it all served a purpose beyond your understanding. You have to realize that God never promised a smooth path. He promised a victorious one. The weapon forming is not the sign of your defeat. It is the announcement of your upliftment. It is the signal that heaven has placed something inside you worth attacking. The enemy never fights the empty. He fights the destined, the anointed, the chosen. The moment you step into alignment with God's plan, the attacks begin to reveal themselves, because the enemy recognizes what many people around you cannot see. You are carrying something powerful. The weapon may form through people you trusted, disappointments you didn't expect, or circumstances you never imagined you would face. Sometimes it forms in the shape of betrayal, a wound you didn't see coming. Other times it forms through stress, fear, sudden financial pressure, or emotional heaviness that steals your peace. And at times, it forms in silence, a quiet distance from people you thought would stand with you. These weapons feel personal because they hit your heart, your mind, your stability. They push you to the edge, making you question your own strength, your decisions, and even your worth. But this is where the mystery of God's protection begins. The weapon can strike, but it cannot stay. It can touch your life, but it cannot take your life. It can disturb your environment, but it cannot dismantle your destiny. You may have felt moments when the attack was so strong you wondered if you were losing everything. But what you didn't see was the invisible shield around your life. God allowed the weapon to be formed, but He did not allow it to prosper. There is a difference. The enemy can rise, can attempt, can launch, but he cannot win. You might feel shaken, but you are not destroyed. You might have cried, but you are not defeated. You might have fallen to your knees, but you did not stay down. The fact that you survived the seasons designed to break you is proof that the weapon has limits. There is a line it cannot cross. There is a boundary God Himself established around your life. The reason the weapon cannot stand is because it is built on lies, and lies cannot withstand the presence of truth. Every attack that rises against you is rooted in fear, jealousy, insecurity, or spiritual distraction. None of these things have the strength to overpower a person who walks in divine purpose. When God has spoken a promise over your life, the enemy can whisper doubt, but he cannot erase the plan. He can shake the path, but he cannot alter the destination. He can delay, but he cannot deny. The weapon might scrape you, bruise you, exhaust you, but it cannot cancel what God has ordained. You are protected in ways you do not always see. Sometimes God allows the weapon to form so you can discover your strength. If the attack had never come, you would not have learned how powerful your prayers are. You would not have learned resilience, endurance, or spiritual vision. You would not have known the depth of your relationship with God. The pressure revealed your capacity. The storm revealed your faith. The pain revealed your purpose. You were not meant to live a life without battles. You were meant to live a life where every battle ends with you still standing. And the beautiful thing is this: every weapon formed against you becomes the evidence used to elevate you. Every person who tried to sabotage you becomes the reason God promotes you. Every situation that tried to silence you becomes the testimony that amplifies your voice. God does not waste attacks. He transforms them. He turns the enemy's plans into stepping stones. He turns their weapons into reminders of His protection. The attack that was supposed to break you becomes the moment that strengthens you. The betrayal that was meant to hurt you becomes the doorway to the blessings meant for you. The disappointment that crushed you is the very thing that shows the world God's hand over your life. Weapons will form, but they cannot win because they are not fighting your strength. They are fighting God's promise, God's covering, God's purpose, and God has never lost a battle. 3-day divine turnarounds are not accidents, coincidences, or lucky breaks. They are intentional moments where heaven interrupts the natural flow of events and rewrites the outcome faster than human logic can explain. When God appoints a 3-day window, He is not just marking time, He is marking transformation. Throughout Scripture and throughout life, 3 days represent a shift so dramatic that nothing looks the same when the period ends. 3 days symbolize resurrection, justice, exposure, and divine reversal. They represent the moment when everything that was buried, silenced, or delayed suddenly rises with power. When God says that your situation will shift in 3 days, He is not giving you a countdown. He is giving you permission to expect the impossible. The reason 3-day turnarounds hit with such force is because they are preceded by seasons of confusion, silence, or suffering that last far longer than you wanted. It's the tension between waiting and wondering that makes the turnaround so powerful. You endure nights that feel endless. You pray prayers that seem unanswered. You walk through days where nothing changes on the surface, yet everything inside you is shifting. 3 days is not just about what God does. It is about what He awakens in you during the process. On the first day, it feels like nothing is happening. On the second day, it feels uncertain. But on the third day, God proves that even when you cannot trace Him, you can trust Him. In 3 days, God can do what your enemies never expected. He can force a confession that people tried to bury for months or years. He can open a door that was slammed shut by human hands. He can overturn a judgment made against you in ignorance or malice. He can restore a reputation that others tried to destroy with lies. He can return peace to a mind that has been attacked, tormented, or exhausted. He can bring clarity to a situation that has been confusing your heart. He can expose the plot hidden behind the smile of someone pretending to be loyal. The 3-day period is God's way of proving that He is not limited by time, systems, or human opposition. 3-day turnarounds often begin in silence. Nothing looks different on the outside. Your situation may seem frozen. The people who wronged you may appear confident, unbothered, even victorious. You might feel the weight of waiting pressing on your chest, making you wonder whether anything will actually shift. But that is the hidden beauty of God's process. He does His greatest work where human eyes cannot see. You are not waiting for God to start moving. God is waiting for the right moment to reveal what He has already completed. A divine turnaround begins beneath the surface long before you see the evidence. The silence is not delay, it is construction. And then suddenly, without warning, the atmosphere shifts. Something small changes first. A conversation, a revelation, a message, a mistake your enemy makes that exposes their intentions, a door that opens when you weren't even knocking. What was hidden starts surfacing. What was stuck starts loosening. What was denied starts turning in your favor. God compresses years of waiting into days of breakthrough. His turnarounds don't take long, they take obedience, faith, and timing. When the timing arrives, change hits like a wave you cannot stop. A 3-day turnaround is also God's way of proving that your story cannot end where the enemy wanted it to end. It means the betrayal did not win. The attack did not destroy you. The fear did not conquer you. The disappointment did not disqualify you. The enemy might have whispered that your situation was finished, but God steps in and redefines what finished looks like. Finished in your life means fulfilled, not defeated. It means completed, not canceled. It means transformed, not terminated. When God marks 3 days over your life, He is declaring that your waiting season is transitioning into your revealing season. Everything that felt stagnant begins to breathe again. Everything that felt lost begins to return. Everything that felt broken begins to rise. You see movement where there was stillness, answers where there were questions, clarity where there was confusion, and justice where there was wrongdoing. The same God who resurrected what was declared dead is the same God who will resurrect what your enemies tried to bury. 3-day divine turnarounds are proof that God's timing is not slow, it is strategic. Every delay had purpose. Every tear was counted. Every moment of confusion was shaping something inside you. And when He says the turnaround is coming, nothing in hell or on earth can stop it. 3 days is not just a promise. It is a declaration that your next chapter has already begun. And everything the enemy tried to steal, silence, or destroy will be restored in a way that leaves no doubt God did this. Sending it back with sand is not about retaliation, anger, or wishing harm. It is about reclaiming the authority God gave you and refusing to accept anything that was never meant for your life. Sand is symbolic, spiritual, and deeply prophetic. It represents firmness, grounding, clarity, and the ability to stand when life tries to move you. Just like sand absorbs footsteps, absorbs pressure, and yet remains, you too are called to absorb the attack without allowing it to bury your identity. Sending it back with sand means you do not fight darkness with fear, you fight it with spiritual positioning. It means you do not receive every thought thrown at you, every lie spoken about you, every burden placed on you. Instead, you stand, you announce God's authority, you nullify every assignment, and you declare peace, justice, and reversal over your life. To stand firm means you refuse to be moved by emotional storms or spiritual intimidation. You recognize that the enemy's first strategy is always mental. Confusion, anxiety, overthinking, self-doubt, fear of people, fear of the future. If the enemy can shake your mind, he can slow your destiny. But standing firm is a declaration that your stability is not in circumstances, it is in God. It is choosing not to be swayed by rumors, by opinions, by the behavior of people, or by temporary setbacks. Standing firm means the attack may push you, but it will not shift you. It means you stop absorbing the energy of negativity and start absorbing the energy of faith. You plant your feet in spiritual identity and refuse to bow to the pressure around you. Announcing God's authority is the moment you stop fighting battles on your strength and start reminding the atmosphere who your defender is. You speak with the confidence of someone who knows heaven is backing them. You stop saying, "I'm scared, I'm weak, I can't handle this," and you begin saying, "God goes before me, no weapon can prosper. What God blesses, no one can curse. I am surrounded, protected, and covered." Announcing His authority means you no longer negotiate with the enemy. You no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You no longer pretend you are powerless. Instead, you speak like someone who belongs to a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Announcing His authority is not for God's benefit, it's for yours. It strengthens your spirit, aligns your thoughts, and tells every spiritual force assigned against you that you know exactly who you are standing with. Nullifying the attack means that you spiritually cancel every plan, every thought pattern, every emotional heaviness, and every negative word spoken over your life. You don't internalize the hurtful comments. You don't carry the curses someone spoke out of jealousy. You don't adopt the fear someone pushed onto you. You don't agree with negativity about your future, your relationships, your finances, your anointing, or your calling. Nullifying means you refuse to make permanent what God never sent. When someone tries to plant doubt in your spirit, you remove it. When someone tries to bind you with their words, you break it. When someone tries to redirect your destiny with manipulation or intimidation, you cut it off. Nullifying isn't about revenge, it's about refusing to give the enemy access to your mind. Declaring justice and restoration is the final step. It is the spiritual moment where you decide that everything stolen must return, everything broken must be rebuilt, and everything delayed must accelerate. You speak life into dead situations. You speak clarity into confusion. You speak peace into chaos. You call back your identity, your joy, your confidence, your opportunities, your relationships, your purpose. Declaring is powerful because the enemy operates silently, but God's people operate through spoken authority. When you declare restoration, you are partnering with heaven to create outcomes that reflect God's will instead of the enemy's agenda. Sending it back with sand is a spiritual mindset. It means you pick up every piece of negativity thrown at you and hand it back to its origin, not through anger, but through refusal. You say, "This fear is not mine. This confusion is not mine. This jealousy is not mine. This attack is not mine. This burden is not mine." You return everything that does not belong in your destiny. You send back every plan of darkness with the weight of spiritual firmness, the clarity of God's authority, the cancellation of false assignments, and the declaration of divine reversal. This is how you reclaim your life. This is how you take back your story. This is how you stand in a world full of shifting sands, by becoming sand yourself, not soft or unstable, but unshakable, unmoved, and unbothered. You become someone the enemy cannot intimidate because you now understand your power. Sending it back is not about fighting the enemy. It is about refusing to surrender your peace. It is about remembering that anything God did not send has no right to stay. When God presses the enemy, everything that was once hidden begins to unravel. Confession does not come because your enemies suddenly become honest or remorseful. It comes because the weight of God's truth becomes too heavy for their deception to carry. People who once stood boldly in their lies begin to tremble under the pressure of divine exposure. When God decides that it is time for the truth to speak louder than the manipulation, the strongest masks begin to break, and the deepest secrets begin to surface. Your enemies confess not from choice, but from divine compulsion. It is the moment when their own schemes turn against them, when the lies they crafted start contradicting each other, when the stories they rehearsed begin falling apart. They confess because the same darkness they used to hide their actions becomes the very place where God shines His light the brightest. There are people who walked confidently after hurting you, believing nothing would ever catch up with them. They thought their charm, their excuses, their manipulation, or their influence would protect them from accountability. They convinced themselves that the role they played in your pain would remain buried forever. But God does not let injustice sit comfortably. He does not let betrayal go unchecked. He does not allow falsehood to live without consequence. At first it looks like they are winning. It seems they are thriving, unbothered, even elevated, but that is only temporary. God allows them to rise just enough for their fall to be unmistakable. He lets them feel secure long enough for the truth to sting with full force when it emerges. And when He presses them, everything they try to hide begins to leak out through their words, their behavior, their mistakes, and their own conscience. Confession often begins in small ways: a slip of the tongue, a contradiction in their story, a reaction they can't control, a sudden shift in attitude that exposes guilt. They start avoiding certain topics, certain people, or even you, because the truth is stretching inside them like a fire they cannot put out. Their conscience becomes restless. Their peace dries up. Their confidence breaks down. They start living in fear of being uncovered, and that fear leads them to reveal more than they intended. God presses them internally long before He exposes them publicly. He troubles their spirit. He interrupts their sleep. He shakes their confidence. He removes their ability to pretend. What once felt easy for them now becomes unbearable. And when God continues pressing, the confession becomes undeniable. Sometimes it comes through their own mouth. Sometimes it comes through someone close to them who can no longer carry the weight of what they know. Sometimes it shows up through evidence they tried to destroy. Sometimes it comes through circumstances that force the truth to the surface. God has 1,000 ways to force a confession, but only one purpose: justice. It is not about humiliating them, it is about restoring you. Their confession is not for their freedom, it is for your vindication. It proves that the battle you faced was real, the pain you went through was valid, and the prayers you prayed were heard. God presses the enemy because He knows the damage that hidden betrayal can do to a soul. He knows that secrecy is a prison. He knows that unspoken injustice can break a person's confidence and identity. So He intervenes. He does not allow you to carry burdens built on lies. He does not allow you to question your sanity because of someone else's deception. He does not allow your name to be dragged silently while the guilty walk freely. His press is a divine force that brings balance back to the story. It restores truth, clarity, and direction. When your enemies confess, it is not just about admitting what they did. It is about revealing who God has always been in your life. It is the proof that the attacks against you were never stronger than the God who protected you. It is the moment when the story finally aligns with heaven's perspective. It is the sign that justice has arrived. And even if they try to resist, defend, or hide again, confession has already begun a spiritual chain reaction that cannot be stopped. Once God starts pressing, the truth becomes louder than every lie they used to build their confidence. In the end, confession is not their victory, it is your liberation. It frees your heart from unanswered questions. It frees your spirit from emotional confusion. It frees your destiny from hidden sabotage. God presses not to punish, but to reveal. He presses not to destroy them, but to restore you. And when He presses hard enough, even the strongest enemy must bow to the truth. God honors the one who refuses to break, not because they are the strongest in the room, but because they are the ones who choose faith over fear, even when everything around them trembles. There is a quiet strength inside a person who has walked through storms without announcing their pain, who has carried burdens without seeking applause, who has fought battles no one knew about and still chose to show up with grace. God sees what people overlook. He sees the tears you wiped before anyone noticed. He sees the nights you stayed awake asking Him for answers. He sees the times you kept serving, loving, helping, believing, even when your heart was tired. He sees the loyalty you gave to people who didn't return it, the kindness you showed in moments when cruelty would have been easier, the faith you held on to when everything was pressuring you to let go. This is why God honors you, because when life pushed you toward breaking, you pushed back with belief. Refusing to break doesn't mean you never felt overwhelmed. It doesn't mean you never cried, doubted, or questioned. It means you did not let the pressure turn you into someone you're not. You stayed rooted in who God called you to be. You faced situations that should have damaged your character, but you kept your heart pure. You encountered people who tried to darken your spirit, but you refused to mirror their behavior. You walked through seasons where giving up would have been the easiest choice, yet you held on to hope. And every time you held yourself together in moments designed to tear you apart, heaven took notice. Nothing you endured silently went unnoticed by God. He took every broken piece, every private wound, every silent struggle, and stored it as evidence for the blessing He is preparing to release over your life. God honors endurance because endurance is proof of trust. When you keep walking through a valley with no visible sign of change, you are telling God, I believe you even here. That kind of faith carries weight in the spiritual realm. It shakes darkness. It weakens the enemy's hold. It frustrates every plot designed against you. Your decision to remain standing becomes a weapon heaven uses on your behalf. Sometimes the enemy's greatest fear is not your strength. It is your refusal to give up. Every time you refuse to break, you declared to the universe that your life is guided by purpose, not by pressure. You declared that your hope does not depend on circumstances, but on the God who walks with you through them. People may have misjudged your quiet endurance. They may have thought your silence made you weak. They may have mistaken your patience for passivity or your kindness for vulnerability. But God knows that silence is sometimes strategy, that patience is sometimes protection, and that kindness is sometimes strength wrapped in gentleness. The very qualities people overlooked are the qualities God is now elevating. The humility you maintained is becoming the door to your promotion. The loyalty you gave is becoming the reason God is sending loyal people into your life. The faith you held on to is becoming the foundation for the breakthroughs prepared for you. God honors what people ignore. There were seasons when you felt forgotten or unseen, when you prayed for relief but received resistance instead. Those seasons were not punishment, they were shaping. God was building endurance in you not to break you, but to prepare you for what requires stability. There are blessings that demand maturity, influence that demands integrity, levels that demand strength of character. You were not being delayed, you were being developed. God honors you now because you did not allow bitterness to take root. You did not allow resentment to guide your actions. You did not allow discouragement to silence your prayers. You kept showing up, even with a wounded heart. And that is the kind of person God can trust with elevation. When God honors someone who refused to break, He does it publicly. He restores what was taken. He strengthens what was weak. He brings peace where there was turmoil. He provides clarity where there was confusion. He sends opportunities that erase the memory of the battles. He aligns situations to favor you. He places you in rooms where your name carries weight. He surrounds you with people who see your value instead of exploiting it. He makes sure that everything you endured becomes part of your story, not part of your identity. Your refusal to break is the reason your story is shifting. It is why divine favor is locating you. It is why doors that were stuck are opening. It is why blessings that were delayed are accelerating. Nothing you went through was wasted. Nothing you suffered was invisible. God honors the one who refuses to break because that person becomes a vessel He can trust with purpose, with influence, with healing, with legacy. You are stepping into a season where everything that once pressured you will become the evidence of God's faithfulness. You stood in the storm, and now heaven stands with you. When you look back over everything you have walked through, the hidden attacks, the spiritual battles, the silent betrayals, the weapons formed in shadows, the delays that felt endless, the confusion that tried to steal your peace, you will realize that none of it was wasted. Every moment was preparing you, shaping you, strengthening you, and lifting you to a level you could not have reached without the pressure. God saw every tear, every prayer, every night you felt alone, every moment you chose faith even when fear screamed louder. And because you refused to break, because you stood when everything tried to collapse your spirit, heaven has released a shift over your life. Your enemies will confess because truth has a voice that cannot be silenced. Every lie spoken against you is returning to its sender. Every plot meant to break you is reversing in your favor. Every plan designed to stop you is becoming fuel for your elevation. God never let the weapon prosper because He was saving you for a moment like this, a moment where He shows you just how deeply He honors the ones who endure. The same hands that were raised against you will now witness God raising you higher than they ever expected. Justice is not coming. It has already begun. Revelation is not coming. It is unfolding. Restoration is not coming. It is happening. What God has set in motion in these 3 days cannot be stopped, slowed, or reversed. You are stepping into a season where clarity replaces confusion, peace replaces anxiety, truth replaces deception, and divine strength replaces every wound left behind by the past. This is your confirmation that God never left you. He was fighting for you the entire time. You are protected, you are chosen, you are covered, and everything the enemy tried will only serve as the testimony that carries you into the next chapter of your destiny. As you move forward, may courage rise in you, may clarity guide you, and may God's hand go before you in every step. Thank you for receiving this message with an open heart. I pray that strength follows you, peace surrounds you, and breakthrough meets you exactly where you are. Good luck on your journey, And thank you for allowing these words to speak into your spirit. May God bless you richly and guide you powerfully in the days ahead.